Good afternoon, everyone. Nike took a bit of a beating today. It's one of the big losers, down 4% on the day. They are getting a bit jammed up. Wow. Whatever can we do? Now, I think that the idea that Nike's impacted by declining Foot Locker sales, maybe that is slightly overblown. Maybe it plays in a little bit. Now, I actually personally just ordered a pair of Nikes last week. Should arrive on my doorstep tomorrow. I'll let you all know how that goes. But speaking of that, Nike is going increasingly direct consumer as of late. So I wouldn't necessarily look at Foot Locker as the leading indicator of where Nike is going, personally. That being said, what is a good price to pay for Nike today? As you can see, it is in the low 30s as far as PE. And at the end of the day, this is basically a $170 billion shoe company. Okay? Are we paying 30x for shoes? I don't know. I mean, could be the greatest shoes ever. Some people think they are, but maybe that's true, but even the greatest shoes ever, is it worth that kind of multiple? A shoe is at some level just a shoe, right? So, first of all, they've been around since the 60s. They've been the leader in shoes since I was a kid, in the 90s at least. And they still, to this day, have pretty impressive top-line sales growth for the most part, 2020 excluded. All right. Now, one of the things I'm interested in looking at on a company like Nike is, where are their gross margins at? How consistent are they? And they are quite consistent, okay? In the looking like maybe 44 to 46 range for the most part, and don't really deviate too much outside of that, at least in the last decade. So, pretty darn consistent gross margins. Most recently in 2022, they were close to the higher end of that little range that they bounce around in. And hey, bull case, maybe they drive that up a bit, over the next few years as they go more and more direct to consumer. But who knows, right? Now, what I want to take a quick peek at is their earnings per share. We have, for the most part, pretty steady increase. There's been a couple years where it took some hits, but their free cash flow roughly similar in terms of mostly growing with a few random little hits smattered about throughout there. When it comes to a company like Nike, I think it is fair to factor in some positives. I think that they will continue to perform admirably. They are a well-run business. They're consistent in a lot of ways, and I think that makes them a good candidate for some standard price modeling. So when we plug 2022's earnings into the price model and have the default growth rate mirror the last 10 years, which, granted, I think is actually kind of generous, with a 10% discount rate and giving them credit for their tangible book value, you come to a fair value of $72.73 per share. I think it's quite likely that this is pretty close to intrinsic value, if not maybe a little over, because of the fact we are crediting them with 9.3% EPS growth starting from their 2022 number of $3.83. Personally, I think when you look at their EPS growth, it's a little bit all over the place. Like, you had 10, 24, 16, 16, and then a drop of 50%, and then a crazy gain of 112%, and then a drop of 35%, etc. I just think, this is a shoe company. They're already pretty much the biggest shoe company that there is. How many more pairs of feet are there to put Nike shoes on throughout the world? At some point, everybody that wants and can afford Nikes will have them. And granted, hey, shoes do wear out eventually, right? And you have to, and there is a lot of brand loyalty here, etc. And people who love these shoes won't mind if the price goes up a little bit to help keep these numbers afloat. So, maybe you could even say that this shoe company has a shoe moat, all right? Potentially. But, I think it's pretty reasonable to, leave this number in here, or even say, hey, they've already reaped a lot of the benefits of going direct to consumer, and maybe what they've done in terms of growth over the last 10 years is going to slow down a bit. Hey, maybe they, instead of 9.3, it goes down to 8% over the next decade, right? I personally like to be more conservative maybe than the usual, and I think that would probably be somewhat reasonable to assume. And if I want a shoe company, even a really good shoe company in my portfolio, personally, I want at least higher than market return. So I'm going to throw a 12.5% discount rate in there. So that gets you to a fair value of $56.70 per share. Wow, making it almost need to fall in half to be reasonable to purchase as like an actual strict value play, in my opinion. So what I would do in this instance is I would probably watch list this somewhere between $60 and $70, and then take a much closer look at these numbers, maybe management guidance, analyst estimates, etc. when that time comes. Potentially start selling puts at lower prices when it's somewhat in this general range. I wouldn't necessarily be super strict about this exact number. This is just what I'm getting as kind of a ballpark based on some slightly more conservative numbers that kind of beat up the company a bit. If you only assume the best case scenario and say, hey, I only want a 9% return and I think they're going to grow faster at like 16% a year. Well, okay, then it's a buy all day long, I guess, if you want to assume 16% growth for the next decade straight with no stumbles, and you are happy with just a 9% return. But if you're happy with a 9% return, just buy an ETF and get it over with, okay? So that's just my take on Nike and its price. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Do I beat up the stock too much in my own personal valuations? Would you be willing to buy Nike at today's price of $110 per share? Do you think the drop today was justified? Not justified? Do you think it should have fallen more? Let me know in the comments below. Give me a old thumbs up on that video there, and be sure to hop on the Discord and subscribe to the channel and all that good stuff if you want to keep participating in these kinds of discussions going forward. We cover all kind of stocks on here, and not just the ones where I ordered shoes from their website. Take it easy, everyone, and have a wonderful day.